So before we start talking about all things digital and Christmas, just wanted to do some introductions. My name's Sarah. I work part-time in the comms team alongside Tom Geldard, who is the Director of Communications and Media. One of our priorities as a team is to support our parishes with online church and help them get the most out of their digital communications. Tom sends his apologies tonight because he unfortunately can't join us due to another meeting. But I'm here with James Cottis, who helps us behind the scenes. He's driving Zoom tonight. He runs his own company, Digital Spirit, and he works closely with us, supporting us with our website and our social media. He works with Sophie, who I think is on tonight, who also helps us with that too. With his company, James also supports many of our churches with their websites and social stuff too. I'm also here with Reverend Alan Moss. Alan is a pioneer minister in Walthamstow. He works with us 1 day a week and helps us develop our online church resources. And he's kind of the main guy who's put all these series of webinars together. So thanks, Alan, for that. These webinars are very much a place where you can come and join in discussions and share your experiences of online church, where we can learn from each other and share best practice. But they're also where you can raise your concerns about online church and have an opportunity to ask any questions you have. This webinar, like all our other online church webinars, is being recorded. So if you don't want to appear on screen, if you're asking a question or anything, you can turn your camera off and just type your questions or comments in the chat. We have some future webinars planned for the new year, and details of these will be added onto our website in the coming weeks. Alongside the series of webinars, we have got online resources for parishes, which can be found in our online church hub. And we've also created a new online community with the Chelmsford Diocese Online Church Facebook group. This again is a place where we can kind of come together, ask questions about anything digital and continue to learn from each other. So a little bit later, I'll put the links to these to both in the chat. And as we're kind of on the topic of Christmas this evening, there's some great resources from the National Church. So I'll signpost to these as well. And their theme this year is At the Heart of Christmas. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's webinar. And I'm now going to hand over to Alan, who's going to tell you a bit more how this evening's going to run. So over to you, Alan.
That's it. Thanks, Sarah. Evening, everyone. I'm already seeing a couple of familiar faces that I've seen on some of our other webinars. So welcome back. I'm glad you come back for more. Sarah's pretty much done most of the explaining on how it's all going to work. But, we're always trying to bring in the best of the best. And I have heard in the grapevine that Caroline is by far, she's, on the edge. I love to overbuild people up because I see them hide. Yeah, there you go. But Caroline is joining us. Caroline is, I asked for a little bio, and this is what she sent me, and she's going to explain a bit more in a minute. So Caroline is a mum of 2 teenagers, which, to be fair, deserves a round of applause already. The vicar of Brightlingsea, or vicar in Brightlingsea, and she's got a background as a secondary school teacher and in grassroots community organising. So already on the edge stuff. She's also a food bank trustee, or a member of a trustee of food bank and a volunteer. And she's currently doing a master's in digital theology. So, Caroline's head is in this stuff. And so I'm looking forward to hearing some of the examples. Caroline's going to be sharing with us some ideas to utilise digital, online digital technology to bless and connect with our community over Christmas time, which, hopefully, we've all sort of been in the midst of this pandemic for, probably 2 Christmases now, I guess, and this one's going to look a little bit different. And what we've recognised is that people really are connecting in online, and we don't want to lose that momentum. So the role that the diocese are trying to play is to try and keep these conversations open. So tonight, Caroline's just going to sort of be sharing some ideas, some resources, things that she's been doing and sort of building up over the last couple of years. And then we're just going to open it out to conversation. Partly, we want these things not to just be a load of information thrown at people, but a forum for people to be able to share your ideas so we can do some mutual learning as well. So I hope that's okay. So we'll hear from Caroline, and then we'll, give ourselves a couple of minutes, and then we'll just throw out for some Q&A and some shared ideas. Is that okay with people? If there's any sort of thumbs up or a couple of nods, a few smiles, that's good. So Caroline, I will hand over to you. Oh.
Good evening. And I did tell you not to big me up, because one of the things that I am is a bumbler in the field of digital, all things digital. I bumbled into this. I learned through trial and much error. And what you see if you visit my YouTube is actually a lot of the things that worked out in the end, which is the tip of a large iceberg. And what you don't see are all the dropped microphones and screechy noises and all the bits that didn't go quite so well. So bear in mind while you look at things that I'm showing as examples that actually some of that is the tip of an iceberg of some work. When we think about digital and when we think about using stuff online, we tend to immediately think of high production videos, and we've all seen them, haven't we? These glorious ones where you've got multiple faces on Zoom in a choir all singing in perfect timing with one another. That is an enormous amount of work. And unless you've got some expertise to begin with, if you try and do something like that for your local congregation and expect that it will turn out the way that it does on the ones you see on YouTube that are being shared between all the churches, you will break your heart, because even getting 4 separate recordings to sing in time with each other takes hours upon hours upon hours. I speak from experience. So one thing I would say is if you're used to this, great, do complicated stuff and enjoy it and love it, and then put it out there for the rest of us to steal, because for most of us involved in any kind of ministry at Christmas time, we just don't have that much time, and we don't have that much expertise. So a lot of what I do is quite simple. And I'm going to show you some examples of the video stuff first, because that's where everyone expects this to go. But then I want to gently challenge that a little bit and show you some examples of other ways that you can use the online space that don't require any expertise at all. Now, I put earlier into the chat, and I'm just going to copy and redrop. This is a little how-to video on my YouTube page, which is how to use the app on my smartphone. All of the things that you see were produced solely using my smartphone, and a little app on my smartphone called KineMaster. So you can learn to use KineMaster. It's fairly straightforward. If I did it, any of you can. And there is a little how-to video where you can look over my shoulder and watch me creating. Actually, it's not very Christmassy. It's an Easter video, but it will give you an example of what the tool can do. But we've just got 3 clips to begin with, and we're just going to have a little glimpse at each one. So if we can cue up the first one. So this one was our Zoom nativity.
See, they do it even when there's lots of them together. Don't be afraid. I bring you good news, joy for everyone. Today in the town of David, a Saviour has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. And this will be a sign to you. You will find the baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger.
Glory to God in the highest heaven, and peace on earth.
Gloria. think so.
I hope so.
We've waited so long for the Messiah.
The one who's going to rescue us. Why is God telling us?
Maybe we're the only ones awake and listening. I told you being a shepherd wasn't all bad.
Let's go to Bethlehem and see. God must be true. Come on then.
Okay, and we'll stop there. So that's your classic nativity, complete with the tea towels, with a little bit of post editing, with a bit of old video that I had of our choir singing from a previous year. You can see it's all very amateur filmed. It's kind of shaky around the edges. And all that we did was we used a Zoom service where everyone came on and they all read their parts, and we read it all the way through. And then I did a little bit post-production to remove one or two of the bits that the parents said, oh, take that bit out, or, oh, you know, when he pulls it over his head, please edit that bit out. And then we just added in the choir and a little bit of an overlay on top. And cutting that together took almost no time. So you can have a visit of that. It's actually on the Diocesan webpage, and it's also on my YouTube if you want to have a rummage around in there. So you can do a nativity on Zoom. It is entirely doable. We all dressed up. We had a lot of fun. And you can actually play around with the Zoom backgrounds as well. We had, you can get palm trees for the wise men as one of the standard Zoom backgrounds, or certainly used to be able to when we did it last time. So another thing you can do, if we can queue up the second one. So this one was photos sent in. I asked people to send in what summed up Christmas for them in Brightlingsea, and people will watch something if it involves them. So this was kind of a bit of a crowdsourced thing, and it's just using a soundtrack played by a local couple, and some images people sent in, and some very simple subtitling on KineMaster. So we'll just have a little bit of this. And again, you can see the rest of that if you really are so minded to visit Brightlingsea virtually on my YouTube. So it was what people felt was important, and making the digital as interactive as possible and doing something crowdsourced. So the theme for that was light, and we had people putting in various photographs of themselves at the church. We did a light trail. We did a light trail through the town where everyone decorated their houses, and that was because we couldn't do our Christmas tree festival that year. And so we had a map, and everyone went round and looked at everybody's decorated houses. So a lot of the photographs on that come from that. Here's a third example just quickly. We'll see a little clip of this. So this time round, this was a service that we did, and we pre-recorded the carols so that not too many people were in the building at a time.
Snow had fallen.
And I think we all know how that particular song goes. So that particular one, the reason I chose to show you that was because it operated on several levels. So the original recording that began that crib service, and you can, if you're so inclined, watch the rest of it if you want to, was done as a live Facebook sort of watch party of carol singing, where people watched it on Facebook at home and were putting comments in the chat and interacting and making requests. And they played their way through a whole series of carols from inside the church building with just 3 of us on our phones doing the live streaming and managing the comments. So it was only 5 of us in total in production for that. We then used the recording, as one of the cameras was recording, to then insert those carols into various services that we then did and then put online. So obviously that was for an audience, and I use the word audience rather than congregation because not everybody who watched that would have considered themselves congregation. But that was for an audience in lockdown who couldn't get out and about and do things. So when you do things like that, it's worth bearing in mind that you've got the people who are stuck at home who are going to watch a party they're not involved with, and therefore you need to make it not only accessible to them, but actually something that they're going to enjoy watching and enjoy and can recognise their own local places and see themselves in it. And also give them the opportunity to comment and interact. And Facebook did that brilliantly with the Facebook Live. This then went on the church Facebook page and people commented on it there. It also then went up on YouTube. So the link could be sent round on email because not everyone's on Facebook and we can't assume they all are. So it went round in a number of different ways. It also went on a DVD that went through people's doors. So getting away from video, there are other things you can do. You can run, for example, a Bible study online, which just involves setting up a Google Doc. And you can, if you go into Google and Google Docs, it'll take you to Google Docs and you can do it free. You can dump the text of a Bible passage into Google Docs and give everybody else, by sharing it with them, permission to comment or permission to edit. And then people can share their views on that Bible passage with one another. Over time, over the course of a day, for example, they can interact by adding comments. And you can then post the final version on whatever social media you use, or use it as the basis for next Sunday's sermon, or call people up to share their comments in on-site worship or online worship. You can also get people to send in images from their smartphones. Something that spoke to you about God this week, take a photograph of it and send it in. Put it in the comment thread on Facebook. Email it into the vicar and we can put it up on the screen on Sunday morning and get people interacting that way. You can, and there are other people on this call more qualified to explain this than me, although we're going to have a go at this year. So I'm in the now and the not yet. So the things I've already done and the things we're about to do and we're nail biting over, we're going to do a QR code pilgrimage with different bits of the nativity story being told on audio so that people scan a QR code that's pinned up on a fence or a wall or in the window of a local business, and it takes them to a recording of part of the Christmas story. So that's something that we're playing around with at the moment, so that we are mixing the digital and the high street so that people can interact with various things. But it can be just as simple as when you've got a group of people together and they've all got their smartphones, saying, show me an image on your smartphone that meant something to you, that speaks to you about Christmas, and say why. So it can be fairly simple or it can be quite complicated. There are a couple of really, really good Advent courses online which supply the video, which supply the questions, and where you can actually play it and run the whole thing on Zoom. And that's something we did last year. I won't send you a clip of it, but that is something straightforward that you can do. And with the added bonus that if the sound doesn't work on Zoom, everyone can just watch the video on the little URL clip for themselves on their own computer with their own sound and then come back in for the discussion. So it's even almost vicar idiot proof. So those are just some suggestions, some of the things that we did, and some of the ways that we interacted and engaged. And often the same image or the same clip can be used multiple times across different things, across Facebook, across YouTube, in a DVD through somebody's door that they can put on their television and watch if they have no Wi-Fi and no connection. On a poster, take a still image, and then people can see it. And one of the other things we're doing is we're getting our local primary school children to design some Christmas posters, which will probably form the basis of another Christmas video similar to the one that we put on at the beginning. And if people know their stuff is going to be up there, they will watch to the end. And they will watch for whatever other message you want to give and however else you want to express the good news. And if you use local resources and crowdsource, then people feel invested in what's going on. So those are just some suggestions pulled out of the hat of what's going on in Brightlingsea. And as I say, you're more than welcome to go on YouTube and browse through some of those others.
Awesome. Thanks, Caroline. To be honest, like, you know, because there's, you know, what some of the things that were, you know, being shown there, and I just kind of, when you were speaking, Caroline, for me, I was just thinking, in the church where I was previous to this, we, you know, last year and the year before, sometimes you can feel very lonely, and like, you know, people are not going through this stuff as well, you know, trying to come up with all these ideas. But what I love about that is that it's just involving the whole community, and it makes it accessible for people as well. And what we really, what I'm really passionate about is not just utilizing technology or, you know, online communication just to sort of broadcast things, you know, moving away from just broadcasting, you know, setting up a camera and just filming what we usually do. I think actually, you know, engaging and including our community is key. So what we'd really like to do now is put it out there, really. Just, you know, this is on other webinars, sometimes we have breakout groups and things like that, but we thought, as there's a lot of people like to watch this back other times, and I know there's another webinar about church finances going on, so I'm sure there's some people enjoying that one right now, but I know other people, they like to watch these back, and so I thought this is a collective space for some joint learning. So if people have got any questions for Caroline or comments or things that you're doing that you'd like to share, we just really love to open up the floor, really, and just have a conversation. So I'll open it up to you lovely people.
This is when it all goes quiet.
Get everyone goes
well, I'm going to kick it off, actually. So I'm just going to change the views. If I can move that one and remove that. And then if I take that to a gallery view, so hopefully we can start to see everyone as well now. So actually, I just want to ask Caroline a little bit more about the QR nativity, because that sounds, I've not heard of that before, and that sounds like a fantastic idea. So what kind of made you think of that, and how are you doing it?
So actually it was my friend Matt who ran a QR code pilgrimage in the Church of Wales who gave me the idea. And the basics of it is that you can set up a QR code that links to a video or an audio clip. So when someone scans that on their phone, they can access that video or audio clip. And then obviously if they move and scan the next one, they get the next bit and so on. So the idea is that you give people a map of where these are located. Now, Matt did this very cleverly using Google Earth. I'm going to do this slightly more low tech by posting in the shop everyone goes to a big map with little dots on that people can take a smartphone photo of, so they know where all the QR codes are located, because not everyone who wants to have a go at this is going to be tech savvy. Most people have got the QR code reader on their phones because we've all been doing it for registering in for various locations during the pandemic. So it's utilizing something that a lot of people have downloaded and got used to using. And it's relatively simple to set up. There are a number of places online. You can just Google how to set up a QR code. And there are a number of sites that will walk you through the very basics of setting it up and linking your audio to it. Although my advice would be, have all your audio clips or your video clips in a row before you go on and start creating QR codes. Otherwise, it gets a bit chaotic.
And the other thing as well, actually, you don't always need a QR reader now. If you actually just scan it with your camera on your phone, it will actually pick it up and take you to the website as well now, with the updates and stuff.
We'll throw it out there. Any other questions? We got just to also say, Oh, Ola, we'll come to it. Yeah, go on.
yeah,
Do you want to jump in? Go on.
a question. You mentioned editing videos to get bits out. Now I know how to top and tail, how to trim. What particular, I mean, is there a particular program that you use to edit bits in the middle? Because that's the thing that I don't know how to do.
Yeah, so I use an app on my phone and it's called KineMaster. I've just put the name of it in the
All right.
chat.
Yeah.
That's the one that I go through on my YouTube, and I do a sort of basic how-to. Now they have slightly changed the front screen of it now, but the operations are still all the same. But the idea is you load your video into KineMaster and it gives you a number of different options, and there's a little scissors icon, and you can choose to trim the front off or trim the back off or split. And so you can split off a section and then split off the other end of it and then delete that middle section. You can also delete audio, which leaves you just with video, and you can then put music underneath. And it lets you change the volume of things, and it lets you put transitions in, like the twirly thing that you saw in my photo video. So you can put in photos and video together and make it work. But it's, I mean, I learned to use the basics of it in about a day. I set aside a day to get my head around it. And I am really not good at this sort of thing. And it was the first of its kind that I'd ever used. And by the end of the day, I'd made a video. So I was pretty chuffed with that. And I think if I can do it, given my lack of expertise at the start and my lack of general aptitude for this kind of stuff, then probably most people can create something on it. And then it's just a question of getting into, there's a whole online community that use it. So you can go into Google and you can type, how do I ... on KineMaster? And some helpful soul somewhere will have put up a video on YouTube on how to do that and will literally talk you through it. So I learned a lot by just going on YouTube and learning from what other people had done.
Great, thank you.
I mean, the other thing I'd also say as well is most phones, I mean, I'm an Apple phone, I've got an iPhone, so I'm not 100% sure on Android, so anyone with an Android, please correct me. But I know on iPhones and stuff that if you start recording on the videos there, you can actually do a lot of the editing within the iPhone video editor there as well. And the other one I would also sort of say, if you wanted to sort of take it to the next level as well, is Adobe do some software called Adobe Rush, which is a very simple video editing tool that allows you to kind of crop videos together, add some text and stuff on top, and it's designed primarily as it's initially designed stuff for creating little videos for social media, but actually there's no reason why you can't kind of have a play around with the videos and stuff on there. There's a free version that allows you to do kind of 3 exports on there, and then obviously there's a paid version if you kind of do really enjoy it, but that's another one to look at. I got caught short once having to create a video on the fly and stuff when the Diocese needs something done, and I managed to put a video together that went out kind of cropping a few things in within about sort of 20 minutes. So it's very simple, very kind of easy to use as well, so I also kind of recommend having a look at that. Hannah, you've put in something called DaVinci Resolve. Is that a good one?
Yeah, it's a free download, and then it's on your computer, a bit like Movie Editor or iMovie. It is a hefty piece. It looks a bit overwhelming to begin with, and there's like lots of different features and stuff. But as Caroline said, there's a lot of forums and YouTube tutorials for it, but the features that you get in it are just fantastic. And for it being a free resource, I recommend it anytime people talk about video editing.
Oh, I have to have a look at that one. You mentioned iMovie as well. Actually, that's another one. Again, if you've got a Mac, that will come built in. And again, that's another free editor and stuff, free video editor that you can use. But like Hannah and Caroline said, 9 times out of 10, if you're not sure how to do something, Google, how do I add my wording on top of my DaVinci Resolve video? And I'll guarantee 99.9% there'll be a video or a walkthrough that someone's come across that exactly. So I mean, I do all the time stuff when I'm not sure on stuff to do things, and I do this for a living. So it's you can guarantee there's always someone's come across the same issue. So always use Google. Google's your friend.
I also spotted that Marin, you put something in the chat about Scripture Union QR Christmas activity. Is that something you've used?
Oh, you're just
Failing to unmute. No, I just saw it last year. We did a nativity trail last year, and I did wonder about using the Scripture Union one, but I just wasn't sure about people being able to scan the QR code, so we did it completely low tech instead. But I just, because it was mentioned and I knew that it's there, I just quickly had a look online. It's still there, so if anybody wants to do QR codes, you can do it without having to do all the work of creating something yourself, unless you want to.
Yeah, the only reason we're going to create it ourselves is because we want to use the drawings the kids are doing at the primary school. But I may decide, depending on however close we get to it, depending on how decimated the classes are with COVID, we might end up defaulting to the Scripture Union version. And the good thing is there are loads of others out there as well. I mean, you can actually, again, Google is your friend. You can always find things that other people have created and use them. Obviously, check your copyrights and what have you. But most of us who've made videos during the pandemic in ministry, I mean, I'm certainly more than happy for people to use anything that I've done that's at all helpful, because it's a way of it going beyond just yourself. And once you create it, it's there for others to use. But occasionally you have to be a bit careful with copyrights and things.
I'm thinking in terms of QR trails. So last year our church had for Thy Kingdom Come, there's like a group called the Cheeky Pandas for children, and they did a prayer trail which we put up around our church, which we've got one of the things that perhaps got us some, like, another level of engagement was, like, I put together a sheet of paper that for each, like, sort of poster that you had to find, there was a question that you had to answer, and then the kids like wrote their answer and posted them all in at the end, and then they all got a prize for taking part. So that's a good way of like having, obviously, because then you've got your digital stuff, but then you've also got like another level of engagement, like people going around your church, like looking at stuff and being like, oh, this is cool, this is fun, this is something fun. Churches do fun things.
It's a nice way as well, getting the children and sort of when they're bored over the Christmas holidays, waiting for Santa to come and Christmas Day to come, getting them involved as well, and just sort of taking the church outside the building into the community.
You can also do a selfie station, and I know churches that have done this where they've set up sort of a nativity scene backdrop, and your child or you can selfie themselves in. You can do it on a big banner or a big piece of paper or what have you. And somebody in our parish, not from our church, I think from one of the other churches, created a gorgeous pair of rainbow wings on the side of a wall that you could go and stand and look as though you had rainbow wings. So there are all these bits and pieces that you can just put out on the street for people to interact with, and you can say something like, send us your selfies of yourself taking part in this, send us what you were thinking while you were doing it, give us your comments and your feedback, and it's just another way of beginning a conversation. I wouldn't just do the send me your selfies on its own, because actually I tend to say send me your selfies and tell me what you were thinking, or how we could improve it or something, because then you've got the next sort of bit of the conversation almost scripted out. And get people answering your comments on Facebook, because one of the big issues that we had was being responsive on Facebook when people then sent things in or made comments, just to make sure someone's on the other end of that who's got a bit of pastoral know-how.
And again, that's not something else I'd always recommend as well, is not just managing a Facebook group for your church, just getting down to one person, making sure you have a kind of a few people who have access and stuff to it, just to kind of share the load, because otherwise it can be a monotonous task for just one person to do it. So a little recommendation would always be to make sure you've got a few people on there.
Cool.
Does anyone else have any idea, want to share anything they're doing this Christmas at all?
Or has anyone seen anything online that you've sort of, thought, oh yeah, that's a cool idea that you'd like to, flag up? We did there was a series, I think it was last Christmas, like when we were in the midst of it all, where there was a couple of churches in the Romford area who did a kind of a joint connection. The churches came together and they did like an Advent series, not just clergy or anyone like that, but just different people in the church who they invited to do like a 2-minute thought. I think there's some stats out there about attention, and people look for videos and they're looking for kind of short, sharp thoughts and reflections and stuff. And a few churches have come together, so it hasn't landed on one church, where they pull together their resources and invite different people to, maybe take, one of the days leading up to Christmas Day from like the 1st of December, and just do a little reflection on a Bible passage and stuff like that. It's another way just in order to get some more voices out there instead of the same usual suspects as well.
And to just mirror that as well, I've seen some churches doing that, basically an Advent service, about Advent kind of one a day, and then run up to Christmas again with a short verse and a short prayer and stuff like that, and a short reflection that's just recorded and then pushed out on their social media channel from the 1st of December leading up to the 25th. So again, that's something that can be kind of recorded easily, or people can just record it on their phones and do that and send it in. And it doesn't always have to be edited as well. It could just actually be, sometimes the rough and readiness of it makes it a bit more real, which I think people like as well.
I wonder if anyone on here has ever done the sort of on-site version of this, which is getting people to dress up their windows of their houses as different Advent windows. Because a nice hybrid crossover you can do with that, if you've ever done that activity before, or you think it would be within the scope of your congregation to find 24 people willing to dress up their windows with a different Christmas image or a different image from the Bible story, is that you can then take a photograph of each one when it's done, and then you can do a digital reveal each day at a particular time. So you put that day's image on the Facebook page along with where it can be found if people want to go and see it. And that can be quite a nice way of getting the digital and the on-site to cross over with one another. And it involves people who might not necessarily be online themselves, but who want to be part of it or are creative in other ways.
Similar vibe as well. St John's in Collier Road did a theatre, I think it was last year, where they, similar thing to the windows, but they had like a Christmas message, and they got different members of the congregation to display a letter each day from the beginning of December right up to Christmas Eve, and families were able to go out and hunt for the letters. Essentially, they knew that one of the letters would be, in a specific area, and they would go, and then at the end on sort of Christmas Day, they put the word together, and then they got a bit of chocolate. I mean, to be fair, the idea was you get a bit of chocolate if you get the phrase, but you get, when a kid comes up to you on Christmas Day and they've got the complete wrong word, they still get a bit of chocolate. We just don't tell them in advance,
So Sarah's also posted in the chat the Church of England's resources and stuff for this year as well, for Advent, for Christmas this year. And one of the links on the bottom there is the actual digital team did a webinar back in October, basically looking at how to make the most of your church's digital presence and stuff. So just kind of going on from this as well. So that's also another video that you can basically register for. So it was a webinar that took place on the 13th of October, but you can, if you put your name details in to register, they'll send you the link for you to download that, and then you can watch that back. And again, that just kind of mirrors on what we're talking about here as well.
One of the things that I did say I would bring into this evening for a friend of mine who wanted to be here and isn't able to be here is around social anxiety, because a lot of people are feeling real genuine social anxiety about coming back to on-site spaces, and to being amongst people again. And then there are people who had social anxiety to begin with. And actually people who are thinking about maybe coming to church for the first time or back after a long time, whether that's online or on site, might experience a degree of anxiety. So one of the things that I've tried to be accountable for and hold others accountable for is making sure our website is up to date with the details of what will actually happen when you walk through the door on site, or what will actually happen when you come online. You know, will something be recorded? Will you get a warning beforehand? Will there be sanitizer? Will people be wearing masks? What can you expect when you walk through the door, either digitally or on site? And posting that up on the church website. And one of the wonderful things that Zoom and live streaming and all of those things has done is it's demystified what goes on behind the big church door for a lot of people. So just publishing really clear links and saying, if you want to know what our church is like, here's our web address, and putting that on the outside of the building so that people who might be struggling a little bit might walk past your building and look you up online and check you out and then decide that they think they can come in, whereas they might not necessarily check you out by pushing open the door. So that is just worth a mention, that sometimes people need a softer entry point than just going in cold for the first time. And some people will have moved into your communities since lockdown started, and so they won't know where everything is and who does what.
I mean, that was kind of going on from, obviously we're talking a lot about using social media and stuff at the moment. But I mean, does anyone have any, I know we've covered this in some other webinars, but does anyone have any kind of questions on getting their services online on a Sunday morning and stuff, or on the Christmas services? I don't know if that's what people are doing now, if that's people more comfortable with it, or it's something we've already covered. But obviously, as we're talking about it, does anyone have any questions about sort of streaming their services? Mike, yes.
Yeah, all this wonderful positivity this evening has been really wonderful. So I'm going to be the negative one, or bring up negativity. I've been disturbed by some mutterings in the congregation that all this digital stuff should be stopped because we want people actually in the church building. Now, I'm opposed to that because for three particular reasons. Well, Rochester Cathedral, for example, says, oh, we've discovered we've got two congregations. You know, the one that's outside possibly never comes into the cathedral, and the one that does come in. And I've added a third one, which is those people who can't come into church. One reason they're disabled maybe, and the other reason is they're afraid. I think you said that, Caroline, about people being nervy about coming through the door. I think that's always been a problem for a long time, but I am concerned about those people who say, no, we must stop the streaming of these services. Well, I think it's been wonderful. We've had people watching our services from various parts of the country.
And far more in number than ever come through the door every week.
And actually sending us money.
Which is always nice.
That wasn't expected.
That's not my main reason for continuing.
But this coincides with the parish share a webinar that's going on as well at the same time as this one.
As a judgment, we're supposed to be there.
Yeah. No, I would completely agree with your arguments there. Actually, as I do, I see both sides of it. From my experience as well, as I'm a church warden, but I also do all the streaming and stuff for our church as well. And we've had exactly the same things as well. Some people want obviously to be back in church, but actually I think it opens up a lot. You're basically taking the church, the service on a Sunday outside. By all means, don't get me wrong, it's also important for us to be in church on a Sunday, and for some people to be in church on a Sunday. But like you said, for some people, getting up at 10 a.m. and into church on a Sunday morning just isn't possible for some people. The health issues, all sorts of disabilities and stuff that they might actually not. And we're making the church accessible and making the church actually into their front room. and that's just a massively positive side of things. But also, like yourself and Caroline said as well, that if you've moved to a new area, the first thing you can do is actually check out the churches and stuff online. Or if you're new to faith, it could be quite scary. I know when the first time I went back into church and stuff, it could be quite scary to go through a church door. I mean, you know, I remember when we were on holiday, we went I just went down to the local church, 13th century church, opened the church door. As you opened it, everyone looks at you. Now, of course, if you're new to faith, you're like, just close the door and walk away again. You don't want that. Well, actually, this gives you the perfect opportunity to sort of see what the church is like. Is this my sort of church? Am I going to think I'm going to fit in here? You know, if you can hear kids in the background, you've got families. Okay, I know that it's actually a family church and stuff. And if my kids are running around a little bit in the background, it's not going to be the end of the world. And actually, we've seen ourselves that a couple of people have watched the services online and then actually come and joined our church. So I think it's being online is no bad thing. And personally, I think, you know, we should use all the resources that we've got available. And I think if Jesus had Zoom and webinars and online streaming in 2000 years ago, I'm sure he would have been using it to its full potential.
Could I just say something about just, you know, kind of the stress factor of digital or of online. So for some reason, our online has been working fine for ages, but I think the last 3 Sundays, so we do our services on PowerPoint in church, and that is routed through the live stream. So you have the video of what's going on in church goes out live on Facebook, but then in the corner they put the PowerPoint, and it looks very smart. But for the last 3 weeks, the blooming thing just hasn't worked. And it was All Souls yesterday. And, you know, we'd got people coming who'd been bereaved, people that would not normally come to church. And I was like mega stressed vicar at the front. And in the end, I just had to pull the plug and just literally connect the computer direct to the power, you know, to the projector, so that at least in church it was projecting, and just cut out all this other stuff. And an apology was typed online. And so I'm totally in favor of it. I want us to keep doing it. I think that it has to be a mix, and we've got a PCC tomorrow, and one of the questions will be, what do we live stream? Because, you know, I don't want to burn out my tech team, but for me as a fairly, you know, well, very low tech, I don't even have a smartphone, you know, so you know, very low tech person. I have to say, yesterday morning it just was horribly stressful, because I got people coming in and nothing they could see, and it's just like, oh, I'm just going to unplug it all and stick this cable in because I know this will work. And that's just a plea for stressed out vicars and technology. But we, you know, it's amazing the people that have come out of the woodwork that are, you know, the stuff people can do. You know, we one of the head of our tech team put together the nativity last year and animated a nativity set and did a green screen thing of the in-key, I mean, all kinds of stuff. Nothing to do with the vicar. There you go. Anyway, I shall shut up.
I would say 2 things. Don't get stressed about things going wrong, because that just happens. And I'm sure you've probably been at service, if you've got a microphone and stuff, sometimes the microphone doesn't work, or that you've got your sermon on an iPad and the iPad doesn't. You just, I think, just don't worry about it. It will be fine. And I think sometimes you worry more about what other people are thinking, actually, and everyone's kind of not bothered. I mean, I've been the same thing at the back of the church and stuff, and all of a sudden the computer decides to do a Windows update, as you do at the beginning of the service, and it's a big one, and then you're 45 minutes into the service and it finally finishes, and there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to just wing it and get on with it. So I would always say, don't worry about it. I think I think people are just pleased to sort of see stuff going on and then to do and interacting with it.
I do have fantasies about a hymn book, a prayer book, and a live pianist, and that would be cool. No technology, not even a microphone. That would be great.
And the other side I was going to say was, as well, is obviously we're talking about putting stuff together. If you've got youth groups and stuff in your church, speak to the kids in there. this is all second nature to them. You know, you ask them to create a video or something like that, they'll do it because it's for them. They've just grown up with it. For their, you know, they're already doing it a lot of the time anyway. And it's also known as a great opportunity to get them involved with during the church services as well. So yeah, if you've got any kind of teenagers and stuff within your church, just see if I'll put a little video together. Takes the pressure off of you having to do it. You can then have a kind of final sort of say and look over it before they put it out, but it will they'll, I'm sure, enjoy doing it, and it gives them a little bit of responsibility as well.
That's it. And to say as well, it's not just the technology that goes wrong. I was leading the communion service at All Saints yesterday, and I almost knocked the communion wine onto the laptop. So that's a very different type of you know, when you get into it, don't you? It's like it's the Holy Spirit, and yeah. So and then of course the vicar accidentally might swear, and so yeah. So it's lots more that could go wrong.
My tech team
Can I just add on to? Oh, go on, you first.
I was just going to say my tech team had the great idea of actually putting a monitor on the communion table so that the Eucharistic prayer is on a monitor. And, you know, you stroll up there sometimes, blank screen, and I just go and get the words out.
Yeah, that can happen. I do know someone, though, who as part of her testimony, she went into a service and everything went wrong in the service. And you know, everything that could have gone wrong basically went wrong in this service, and she came to faith. And she said part of what enabled her to come to faith was it had taken such extraordinary courage for her to go into church, and she felt so flawed and so unworthy and so wretched in herself. And she dragged herself into church and skulked into the back pew and hidden away. And she saw everything go wrong, and people being, you know, funny and loving and improvising and messing it all up. And she came back and back and back and back and became a member of the congregation and came to faith. But she cites the tipping point of her deciding to explore faith was the day that everything went wrong and nobody screamed at each other and stormed out, and everyone just somehow made something work. And the other thing, because I'm a Girl Scout, as it were, is I do have a panic bag. My panic bag lives in either in my house or in the back of my car, and it is what I pull out if everything fails. So I always tell myself when I go to a service where there's lots of tech involved, imagine worst case scenario, everything fails, what you're going to do. And so I do have a panic bag that has things like a physical copy of the Eucharistic prayer, a physical copy of some liturgical responses that are dead simple that everyone can repeat after me, you know, and if all else fails, I just grab the panic bag and pull stuff out the panic bag and go. So I do advocate a panic bag. And if anyone's got really good panic bag resources, because I can't be the only one, then perhaps the Facebook group, the Diocesan Facebook group, might be a good place to put what's good to have in your panic bag if all the tech goes wrong.
Yeah, for sure. And to add,
that is a perfect segue for me to pass across to Alan to just roll us on now because we're coming on to 8 o'clock just about the Facebook group.
Absolutely, yeah. So and that was exactly what I was thinking. I was like, perfect. Thank you, Caroline. That's great. So so I think it was actually popped in the chat. I don't know if someone could pop it in there again just to double check. But there is sort of a new-ish, it's only been around for a few weeks, Facebook group or diocesan Facebook group. Let me just get it up for myself here so I can see it. So it's Chelmsford Diocese Online Church Network, and so Sarah just popped the link in there as well. And it's just a space for people who are exploring this or have been doing it, regardless of whether you're brand new to it or whether you've been doing it for a while. It's an opportunity for us as a diocese to connect and share these ideas. I mean, this has been a great conversation tonight, just like sharing ideas and, you know, listening to war stories and all that kind of stuff. And also, like Mike, you were talking about, you know, people in your church are a little bit apprehensive. And what we're really trying to champion in this diocese, with the help of our friend Pete Phillips, who works for Premier, you know, champion hybrid church is not about getting rid of the physical. It's about recognizing that we live in a world where digital and physical are combined. They work together already. You know, we're already online and we're already, you know, physically present in places. So it's about inhabiting the world that we're already in, you know. So if people are nervous about, you know, everything's going to go digital, and we're going to lose all our people, you know, just remind them this is just about inhabiting the world that we live in. You know, it's about both. It's not one or the other. And that's what our website, you know, that's what it's there for, to have those sort of discussions, to bring those concerns and to support one another. And I think, you know, it's only been going for a few weeks. We're up to 72 members. So there's lots of wisdom to be shared. So why don't, Caroline, would you mind ending us with a prayer?
Sure. I invite you all just to hold in your minds for a moment the worst case scenario of everything going really wrong when you try something digital. Lord God, you know all the things we're afraid of. And you know that most of all, we're often afraid of screwing up and looking like idiots. We thank you, Lord, that you are with us. We know that you don't promise that we'll never look like an idiot, but you do promise that you will be with us. That we, if we are willing, are those you can use to meet the needs of others. So, Lord, we pray that you will break us open like bread, that you will pour us out like wine, that you will enable us to put ourselves into your hands, spiritually, physically, digitally, that you will enable us to trust you, that whatever might go wrong technically, you will turn up regardless. We thank you that the name we sing at Christmas and praise at Christmas is Emmanuel, God with us. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So thanks everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're going to try and put these out. So join the Facebook group. What we'd really love is some feedback as well. You know, I think, you know, there'll be an opportunity after this. There'll be, you know, an email sent out or something to get some feedback, and any topics that we might be able to cover in the new year around online, digital, hybrid church. You know, we're looking to get new speakers in, all that kind of stuff. So we'd really sort of love to keep the conversation going, you know, way beyond the pandemic. You know, this is the future, this is the now. So so if you've got topics, practical things, whatever it is you can think of related to digital, online, whatever, throw us some suggestions, and we'd love to you know, build some stuff around that as well. So God bless everyone.